Hey there, I haven't posted a vlog or video log in a long time. I know I took a lot of my videos down because I said I was tired of doing the activism work and speaking out about it, and I felt that my life was in danger and that my son's life was in danger. It appeared that worse and worse things started to happen the more I spoke out. But things are still kind of happening. Actually, things are still happening, especially in regards to my son. And I found out some also very scary direct connections once again with MK Ultra doctors from the past, people related to my father's estate case, or with people he knew up in Washington DC. Also a therapist who came into the hospital where my son, this is looks like I'm having fun at the beach. It's actually my first day of relaxing in a long time. My brain kind of needs it. What they do with this program is to make sure they target you constantly. There will be complete stressor after stressor after stressor. My son was put into jail. Basically, as far as I'm concerned, there was no newspaper media coverage of it at all. It was actually coordinated by a 18-year-old who I have looked into my son's old Facebook pictures, and this 18-year-old started to show up in my son's life and tell him that this other 32-year-old man had great plans for him. I found out the 32-year-old man was on America's Most Wanted for murder, is a heroin dealer, and I went into his court records here, and this 32-year-old man actually had his murder record sealed, which means basically we have never seen that. A lot of people I've talked to and asked for murder charges and records to be sealed. That means, and my son always said this man was an informant, that he worked with the government. So that would make sense. Anyway, this man and this other 18-year-old who has an uncle, this 18-year-old has an uncle who works with Stanford, and they work with low-wave frequencies and implants, and putting robots into the body through nanotechnology. He also has that's his uncle. He also has his mother's sister is married to a man who is the son of a man who trained Colin Powell, and his brother wrote books about bioethics and testing on human test subjects. So that's just some connections. Anyway, I'm kind of rambling here. I'm trying to get out everything as quickly as possible. My son is in urgent danger. I am trying to think of what to do. Also, the constant stressors are also kept up so that when things happen, boom, another bad thing happens. So you don't have time to think things through and think things over, because it's just constant, especially with my son. That seems like the main ploy they're using right now. Anyway, so the people who sort of orchestrated the thing that my son got arrested for didn't serve any jail time. Basically, it was sort of like, to me, it was a typical COINTELPRO operation to get other kids arrested, and my son. My son didn't even steal anything, but we had let a boy stay with us, and the police, the day my son was going to get a PTI, the police came in, and so they found boxes. So the boy that my mother and I had trusted and let stay in our home had participated in the theft. And so my son was charged with possession, even though the boxes, but I'll get more into that on another video. Make a long story short, he said he'd rather commit suicide than go to prison for something he didn't do. And he had about 10 cigar burn marks all up and down his arm. And I was told that the cigar burns were done by one of the perpetrators, the 18-year-old, to keep him silent, and also, of course, my son is afraid of this other guy. Well, he's not afraid. My son is completely out of his mind. Anyway, I left him in jail for about a month so he could wake up. And he called me, and it was the first time I actually heard him. He goes, "Mom, that man he said he was addicted to heroin." And I was like, "Oh my God." He goes, "But Mom, I wasn't doing the heroin for fun. I was doing it to cover up the pain." And I bailed him out of jail, and he was fine for 3 days, and then he disappeared again. And the folks that he has been disappearing with, they abuse him. I've got phone records they call me all the names you can think of, and there's something else I'd like to go into. basically they told him to call this lawyer. Well, this lawyer I investigated before because of his connections, his connections with Jonathan Ashcroft and his connections to the parents of the son who put up my son's bloody picture up on Facebook. These parents prosecuted Jose Padilla, the Al-Qaeda shoe bomber. Also, my son's first day of school here in South Carolina, or not his first week of here in South Carolina, a teacher by the name of Miss Moriarty, more connections there, made him confess that he was a small Hispanic assassin who would shoot us all. So we've got typical COINTELPRO / Monarch / Manchurian candidating things going on with my child. I was going to try to contact the doctor up in Canada who writes the books. I forgot his name, but I was going to try to contact him. My son needs immediate intervention. Anyway, my son was found out here, washed up on the beach. He had no underwear on, no shoes, was passed out, and he had been left on the beach. And the police found him, brought him into the emergency room. He had a high blood alcohol level content. I have had people contacting me, friends of his contacting me, saying that he is going to end up in the grave. He was downing 2 bottles of Deslum a day, which is a cough syrup. He's basically suicidal. He's been very hurt, and he just doesn't know what to do. And he is just so... anyway, to make a long story short, we were in the ER, and we're like, thank God, finally, at least he's alive, and we're going to get him into drug rehab. That's what I want to do, get him... He's been beat up. The picture you can see, he's been burnt. All these things have happened. And I'm like, he's probably got post-traumatic stress disorder, apart from all the mind abuse and mind control. And also, when they found him on the beach, when we went into the emergency room, he had a swastika that had been scratched into his neck and scratches all over here. And someone had written on his arm, "Killer," in red. And he had no recollection of what had happened the night before. No recollection whatsoever. And he acted like he really didn't even know me. It was very scary. So the nurses were about to get him a bed at MUSC, which is one of our best hospitals for detox. And also I wanted to forward him up to a detox place that's a 3-month-long place. Anywho, we're so happy, finally, because I don't want to lose him. I don't want him to die. Anyway, we wait about an hour, and then a social worker shows up. And weird behavior from the get-go. I have to backtrack because when my son was going to get arrested before he went to jail, he said he was suicidal, so we had to put him into a place called Palmetto Behavioral Health. Well, I got a phone call the next day. Ma'am, yes, your son has escaped from the hospital, and the last place we saw him was by the chemical plants. Okay? And so, by the river. So we thought he was dead for a month. I didn't know where he was. The people that took him in, okay? People that took him in, I've made connections to with the therapist and also with the lawyer up in Washington, D.C., one of the lawyers. Another thing, the 18-year-old, his uncle's dad has a Facebook friend who works in the DC court, so he also knows these lawyers. So anyway, my son disappeared, so it was Palmetto. But anyway, this therapist, she was about in her 70s, and she knew. She was like, I was like, he's depressed, you can't, she goes, she saw the abuse sign, she saw the burn marks, on his arm, the cigar burn marks, she saw that his alcohol blood content was super high, she saw the swastika on his neck, okay, and my mother and I wanted him in the MUSC, and then she changed things up and let him go outside of the hospital, still with a high alcohol content. My mother and I were shocked. And she said, he's an adult. And I said, yes, but he was just suicidal. Like, he is suicidal. And he just escaped from Palmetto Behavioral Health. And she goes, well, that was 2 months ago. And I'm like, how does this woman know how long ago that was? She knew too much. So I Google searched her, and Facebook connections. I can't get into all that. She lived in Arlington, Virginia, about 5 blocks away from where my dad lived. She worked in the psych field up in DC. Another thing is, I found out one of the men who I made another MK Ultra connection with lied on my dad's divorce records. This man lied on my dad's divorce records, stating that he had gone to Georgetown. Well, I decided to do some background search on him. He never went to Georgetown University, and then I found out who his wife was, and his wife was trained at the J. Haley Institute in Washington, D.C., which is, J. Haley was an MK Ultra protege of, I think I'm pronouncing his name wrong, Dr. Bastian. They worked on Project Chatter. They worked with the Dolphins, a lot of stuff like that. So she's from Arlington, Virginia, too. They moved down here as soon as my mother and sister moved down here. They moved down here at the same time. Okay, now these are some other shocking things that I have found out. These are direct connections to previous MK Ultra people. I was Google searching yesterday her husband's on old newspaper records, and he attended a wedding for 2 people, and both of them were employed back in the early 70s at the mental health institution where Dr. Sidney Gottlieb lived. It's this little town. I forgot the name. I could look up it. I'll actually put it down on the bottom. But that means they were actually employed at this mental health center, which only had 5 employees, which was only about 5 minutes away from Dr. Sidney Gottlieb's house. Another connection. One of the lawyers wrote a book, co-authored a book with Donald Lund. Donald Lund was also claimed, if you read on the internet, he was the one that the CIA always called in to the jails to interview their mind control. Charles Manson, Patty Hearst, a list of another, I think also the Kennedy shooter. So people sort of theorize that he was sort of a handler, MK Ultra sort of doctor. So this lawyer, one of the lawyers that held my father's estate, of course my sister and I, MK Ultra victims, we were told he died bankrupt. Basically the estate was looted from us and we were placed in this program, which still is going on today. And what was I going to say? I was going to say something. This lawyer represented Dr. Sidney Gottlieb in both the Frank Olson trial and in the trial of the Paris student that was dosed with LSD. So he defended him, and he co-authored a book with Donald Lund. And the book is called, it's about Patty Hearst. And it's called Brainwashing as a Defense in the Legal, oh gosh, I can't remember the name of the book, but it's called Patty Hearst Revisited, Brainwashing as a Legal Defense. Anyway, Google search Donald Lund and the book, and Patty Hearst in quotations, and that book will come up. So that's another connection. The people who my son are with, very dangerous. They're drugging him up. I just found out he is been arrested once again, and he is in a different state. Thank God he's a juvenile in that state. Here in South Carolina, he was tackled and arrested the day he turned 17, which made him an adult. It's terrible. 17 is too young to be an adult, and he has received no mental health whatsoever. He desperately, he's a victim of satanic ritual abuse. He's been burnt. He's been traumatized. I'm begging for help for him, please, because I do not want to lose him. And I'm begging, not so much in the sense of support here on comments on YouTube, which I appreciate. I'm begging for action. I'm begging for psychiatrists who, or for example, that doctor that I wanted to contact who has written and knows about mind control and satanic ritual abuse for children. I need help. I don't want to lose him. I'm already losing him. And it's very scary. I don't want to lose him, so I'm begging for help from people from YouTube who are aware of MK Ultra things. He's just a baby, and I think I read about Kathy O'Brien. I think her daughter ended up in jail too or something, but they are slowly killing him, and this woman, I mean, they're letting him. Also, when he escaped from, hold on one second, there's a person walking by, I don't want them to be, alright, okay. Also, when he escaped from the psych ward at Palmetto Behavioral Health 2 months ago, it was very scary because the policeman that called in, and this is once again, they're Q words, he had the same last name as the detective, the police officer that my rape kit was given to. Same last name, which is a weird last name. Rohl, R-O-L-E, R-O-H-L. And there's another thing. I have gone into phone calls that my son told me about a week and a half ago, that he was walking and the schizophrenic girl came up to him and he helped her out, and his mother and the schizophrenic girl gave their mother phone ride home. Well, I went into her voicemail messages. I was able to do that, and she was getting messages from someone who was very close to Michael Jackson. So, and I've also Google searched her, and I'm not kidding, close to Michael Jackson. All right? And this is not a joke. I have the actual recordings. And this person that is close to Michael Jackson, I read online, people were saying that he could possibly be an MK Ultra handler. So she was acting like she was schizophrenic for my son. My son tried to help her off the bridge, and then her mother and him. So who knows what is happening, but there are dangerous circumstances and dangerous people around my son, and I need help for him. Please, somebody. And thanks for listening. Bye.